Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly excited to be your guide today, mostly because we're going to tackle a topic that is literally the bedrock of all scientific inquiry. Seriously, if you've ever stared at a chemistry problem or a physics lab report and just felt totally lost in a sea of random numbers, decimals, and zeros, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're doing a masterclass. We are going to completely demystify the rules of scientific measurement and data reporting. And I want to stress right out of the gate exactly why this matters so much. Whether you're calculating the trajectory of a rocket heading into orbit, or you're a nurse trying to figure out the exact dosage of a life-saving medication, understanding exactly how much you can trust your numbers is everything. It's absolutely crucial. So let's dive right in and make some sense of how we accurately record the physical world around us.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover exactly 4 things: exact versus uncertain numbers, accuracy versus precision, identifying significant figures, and we'll wrap it all up with rounding and calculation rules.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, exact versus uncertain numbers. And to start, I want to pose a fundamental question to you. Think about this. Can numbers and measurements ever truly be perfect?
Well, to answer that, we really need to look at the contrast between counting something and measuring something. Think about grabbing a standard carton of eggs from the grocery store. If we count them, we get 12. That is an exact number. It is completely free from any uncertainty. I mean, you don't have 12.1 eggs or 11.9 eggs, right? You have exactly 12. Counting is basically a digital switch. It's either exactly 12 or it isn't. And that same rule applies to defined quantities, like the fact that there are exactly 12 inches in a foot. But measuring a liquid in a graduated cylinder, that's a completely different story. To find that volume, you have to look closely and read the bottom of the curve, the meniscus. You might see that it sits right between the 21 and 22 milliliter marks, and maybe it looks a bit past the halfway point to you. So you estimate it. You call it 21.6 milliliters. The 2 and the 1, those are certain, but that 0.6, that requires your human interpretation. Someone else looking at that exact same tube might read it as 21.5 or 21.7, and because of that required estimation, it's an inherently uncertain number.
So that brings us to a really crucial definition: uncertainty. Simply put, unless you are counting discrete, whole objects or using strictly defined quantities, every single measurement you ever make carries uncertainty, period. And I really want to emphasize something here. Uncertainty is not a mistake. It's not a failure on your part as a scientist. It is just a physical reality of the universe. Even the most insanely expensive, state-of-the-art laser rulers in $1 million lab have a limit to their capability. For example, if you pop a quarter on a standard kitchen scale, it might read 6.72 grams. But put that same quarter on a super-sensitive analytical balance, and it might say 6.723 grams. The physical device itself and your ability to read it literally limits the measurement. So that very last digit of any measurement, it's always an estimate, and therefore it always has a margin of doubt.
Moving right along to our second section, accuracy versus precision. Now, these are 2 words that people use interchangeably all the time in everyday conversation. But in science, they mean very, very different things.
Picture yourself at an archery range. Accuracy is all about how closely your arrows actually align with the true value, the bullseye. If you hit the center, boom, you are accurate. Precision, on the other hand, is all about reproducibility. It's the fineness and consistency of what you're doing. Now imagine a target where all your arrows hit the exact same spot, tightly clustered together, but they're way off to the side of the target. Those shots are highly precise because the result is incredibly consistent. But because they are completely missing the center, they are absolutely not accurate. So you can be perfectly precise while being completely wrong. That archer with the tight cluster off to the side has amazing form and consistency, but their sights are just totally misaligned. In science, if you have high precision but low accuracy, it usually points to a flawed or improperly calibrated instrument rather than a clumsy scientist.
Let's look at how this actually plays out in the real world with some pharmaceutical data. Imagine you're a quality control chemist. You're checking the factory machines that dispense exactly 296 milliliters of cough syrup into bottles. Dispenser number 1 is giving us 283.3, 284.1, and 283.9. Notice how incredibly close together those numbers are? They only vary by a few tenths of a milliliter, so that is highly precise. But they are nowhere near our 296 milliliter target. Terrible accuracy. And what's the real-world consequence of that? Well, if dispenser 1 is consistently shorting the medicine, the company isn't going to overdose anyone, sure, but the medicine might not actually work for the patient.
On the flip side, if it were consistently over-dispensing, that could be incredibly dangerous. Now look at dispenser 3. It is beautifully accurate and precise. It's consistently hitting right around 296.1 and 295.9. It's hitting the bullseye, and the arrows are tightly clustered. That is the only machine you want making your medicine for sure.
All right, now that we have a solid grip on precision, let's jump into Section 3, Identifying Significant Figures. This is the theoretical tool scientists use to strictly track that exact precision we just talked about.
So whenever you make a proper measurement, all the valid digits in your result are called significant figures, or sigfigs for short. But here's the catch. When you're reading someone else's data, how do you know which digits are actually significant? Well, here are the golden rules, and I want you to really lock these into your brain. First off, any digit from 1 to 9 is always significant. Simple enough, right? But what about zeros? That's where things get kind of tricky. Captive zeros, meaning zeros trapped right between non-zero digits, are always significant. Leading zeros, the ones sitting at the very beginning of a decimal, are never significant. I want you to think of leading zeros simply as a GPS. They're just telling the decimal point where to park. They do not add any value to the measurement itself. And finally, trailing zeros, at the very end of a number, are only significant if that number contains a visibly written decimal point.
Okay, let's step up to the chalkboard and actually work through a specific number together. Look at 0.002040. How many sig figs are we looking at here? Let's just apply our rules straight left to right. Those first 3 zeros on the left, leading zeros, they do not count, they're just locating the decimal for us. Moving along, the 2 and the 4 are non-zeros, so they definitely count. Now what about that 0 trapped right between the 2 and the 4? Well, that's a captive 0, so it absolutely counts, and that very last 0. It's a trailing 0, and because there is a clear written decimal point in this number, it counts too. It proves the scientist actually measured out to that exact decimal place. So this specific number has exactly 4 significant figures.
Let's see how this builds into something even more nuanced. Take the measurement 1,300 grams, written without a decimal point. Because there's no decimal point there, those trailing zeros don't count. We just have to assume only the 1 and the 3 are significant. This basically implies a rough ballpark measurement of about 1,300. Now think about the real-world stakes here. If you're buying a big pile of sand for a backyard sandbox, 1,300 grams without a decimal is totally fine. Give or take 100 grams, no big deal at all. But if you're buying 1,300 grams of pure solid gold, you want that decimal point. You want to know it was measured down to the absolute single gram. By writing 1,300 with an explicit decimal point at the very end, that single tiny dot completely changes the scientific meaning. Suddenly, those trailing zeros become significant, giving us 4 significant figures instead of 2. It's a game changer.
Okay, time to test yourself. I want you to be an active participant here. Look at this measurement, 0.006606 seconds. Run through the rules we just talked about in your head. I'll give you a second.
Did you get 4? Awesome job if you did. Let's quickly reiterate the why just to make sure we're all entirely on the same page. Those first 3 zeros at the start, leading zeros, so we completely ignore them. The 6s obviously count as non-zero digits, and the 0 trapped securely right between those last 2 6s is a captive 0. That means it's a meaningful, actually measured digit. So yep, 4 significant figures.
Fantastic job. Now let's move into our fourth and final section, rounding and calculation rules. This is where we get to bring all our theory into practice by applying these rules to actual math. Because remember this one golden rule: a calculated result can never, ever be more precise than the least precise measurement used to get it.
First up, let's talk about rounding. Mostly, it's exactly what you're used to. If the digit you need to drop is less than 5, you leave the retained digit alone. If it's more than 5, you round up. Simple. But what if the drop digit is exactly 5? This actually blows people's minds a little bit. It's a fascinating rule based on reliable statistics. Think about it. If you always round up on a 5, you introduce a slight upward bias in large data sets. Why? Because digits 1 through 4 round down and digits 6 through 9 round up. If 5 always rounds up too, then 5 out of 9 times you are artificially inflating the number. Over thousands of data points, your total sum is going to balloon. So to prevent this bias, when dropping exactly a 5, we round to the nearest even number. This effectively splits that difference straight down the middle. So if you need to round 6.875 to 2 decimal places, the 7 is odd, so you round up to an even 8, giving you 6.88. It's an intentional, clever strategy to keep our scientific data completely pure.
Now, for mathematical operations, you really have to memorize these 2 distinct rules because they are different. For addition and subtraction, your final answer is strictly limited by the number with the least number of decimal places. It is all about the vertical alignment of the decimal point. But for multiplication and division, your final answer is limited by the number with the least number of total significant figures.
Let's actually demonstrate that addition rule in action right now. Let's say we're adding 1.0023 grams and 4.383 grams. The first number goes all the way out to 4 decimal places, but the second number only goes out to 3 decimal places, the thousandths place. If you just plug this into a calculator, it eagerly spits out 5.3853. But listen, calculators don't know chemistry. Since our least precise measurement stops at the thousandths place, our final answer must also stop there. So we drop that final 3, rounding down, to get a scientifically correct answer of 5.385 grams.
Let's throw out one final test to the class before we wrap up today, just to make absolutely sure that multiplication rule has stuck. I want you to multiply 0.6238 centimeters by 6.6 centimeters. Think about the rule we just learned. How many total significant figures should your final answer actually have?
Boom, the answer is 4.1 square centimeters. Now, if you got 4.11708 on your calculator, hey, you did the math right, but you didn't do the science right. Think of it like a chain. A chain is literally only as strong as its weakest link. In multiplication, your final answer is only as precise as your sloppiest, least precise measurement. The number 0.6238 has 4 significant figures, but 6.6, it only has 2. Because this is multiplication, the rule says we are limited by that least number of significant figures. Those 2 sig figs in 6.6 act as a complete bottleneck, totally limiting the precision of our entire result. So we have to round our calculator's super long answer down to just 2 digits. 4.1.
I want to leave you with one final real-world provocation to chew on. Back in 2014, the U.S. Census reported the national population as exactly 317,297,725 people. Think about that. That is 9 significant figures, but really think about it. People are constantly being born, moving across borders, and passing away every single second. The underlying uncertainty of a massive, dynamic population like that is huge. Does it actually make any scientific sense to report a number with that level of supposed certainty? Or, as scientists, would it be much more honest to report it as 3.17 times 10 to the 8th, openly acknowledging that we only truly know it to about the nearest million? It's a really powerful reminder that how we report our numbers tells a definitive story about how well we really know our world. Thank you so much for joining me for this masterclass on measurement. Keep asking questions.